Hello, this is BAFA 10, Bond Report, and by assholes for assholes, BAFA. And this one is academic credit, man versus minion. And, you know, the minions are the people below you and you're trying to take advantage of them to pad your CV. Now, the minions are assembled here in a group. They have white coats on. Now, several techniques border on industrial methods, or frankly more the plantation model, where your indentured workers don't get much of anything of their labor, and their indentured labor is used for upholstering and padding your CV. Now, it's been found to be the best people to be used for indentured labor in this manner are a bunch of trainee doctors who are accustomed to working without basic human rights to begin with. So they're very, very good for this. You see them in their sweatshops and their deals, and they're accustomed more and more legally, and this occurs in practice now, to working without basic human rights. And so this can be taken advantage of and is. In other words, you're a serf. And when you're ready to work, I just like this particular picture, surf's up. It's time to get back to work. It's time to do anything that we can do. And here they are in their sweatshops, you know. This is a classroom early on, but you're doing this work, getting your paper ready to deliver at one of these big academies. Now, this is a Don Marquis thing, pronounced Marquis, who wrote Archie the Cockroach. And he just had a quote there that I always liked. Whenever a man tells you that he got rich through hard work, ask him whose. In terms of the works of these minions that are done at the meetings, and these papers are entered into, and so the information in there never really presented and shown in a slide that's unreadable. So this unchecked, undiscussed, undisputed content of all those papers is presented as genuine knowledge, and a thing which has been discussed, carefully checked, is actual science. And now this is in the scientific literature. It's written as a paper. It can be counted on. It can be used, cited. It says in this paper that so-and-so, and God forbid, extrapolated from, we use this data and reason to the next thing, of this unchecked, unused, unheard, whipped-through data. And there is genuine knowledge. There is genuine data. The stuff you read in these meetings may or may not be it, and often could not be. John Lennon said this, or Paul McCartney in this case. We're constantly being asked all kinds of profound questions, but we're not really profound people. We're not really very profound people. And, you know, in non-rare cases, the speaker will go on, actually believe it can certainly do it better. And the sum total of human knowledge, there are people that cannot open their mouth without subtracting from the sum total of human knowledge. Thomas Reed said that the best when he was Speaker of the House. He's speaking about some of the fellow guys in his party. They couldn't open their mouths without subtracting from the sum total of human knowledge. And there are several, you know, this is not an overly original sentiment, but I don't think it's ever been delivered better. The academic credit that's given for this is all the academicus tuiticus needs. An academic credit is something like, here's how you get, gee, these papers were written out of your outfit, well, you get full credit. Normally, the head doctor there is first author on the paper, meaning that the paper will bear his name and those things. So academic credit, like guns, like handguns particularly, seem to fairly routinely wind up in the wrong hands. In fact, pretty much all that I know. And this may be a variation of Stigler's law, which we'll cover in detail in another talk. So a moment of science on this. This may or may not be that guy's science. This may or may not be science at all. Once again, harking back to an earlier talk. Stigler's law of eponymy, basically, an eponym is a guy's name on something, Parkinson's disease, something. And there was a movement when I was a medical student to make it get away from naming diseases for doctors. There's only about 4 or 5 diseases named for patients, and pretty much it's all doctors that discovered it or described it. But Stigler's law, well, that's called an eponym, is using the name to describe it. Stigler was watching a sociologist named Robert K. Merton, and Robert K. Merton gave a paper on this topic that he'd thought of, And since Stigler was the forced to report it to certain authorities, it's called Stigler's Law. And Stigler's Law is that the person whose name is on it is never the original discoverer of the concept. So that is Stigler's Law. It's never named for the guy that really did discover it. And since it's named for a guy, Stigler, listening to it in a talk and publishing it as his own, Stigler actually glorifies this and says the law is self-referential. The law is referring to itself, and which is kind of a nice touch. You don't get them all to do that. Once again, we're not very profound people. And so Stigler's Law does this. You can make the data say more or less anything. And when it gets down to the academic credit, you torture the data enough, but this was the guy that did it. Charles von Loon said it the best. You think you're able to offer advice. The academic guys are notorious for this. You get guys in practice that have done 25,000 of these, and these guys are ready to give you the benefit of their 3 or 4 cases. Every man who plays golf, no matter how badly, feels himself entitled or obliged or competent to offer sage advice about this thing you've done like a million times. Does this remind you of, anyone else? And we particularly have chat lines that I read of academic guys talking about various concepts in ophthalmology. And actually, to be entirely cynical, sometimes you read them solely to feel superior. The information is in there, or as an exercise, who can be the most fatuous today? Who can say the most asinine thing and get away with it and never seem to wise up to himself? And read this like it was written as satire, and it's quite hilarious. And you get the same reliable dudes you'll go back to for your daily fatuousness. And the whole central point is they themselves aren't aware of it, and they never seem to wise up. If you took that advice, you'd never go anywhere. Here's Jon Stewart on The Daily Show saying one day, well, we're going to have, to give us a legal talk today, Timothy McVeigh's lawyer. Now, Timothy McVeigh got the death penalty, and it was carried out. He says, we're going to have Timothy McVeigh's lawyer here who got him the death penalty, and quite frankly, I could have done that. Or you pick anybody off the street. I mean, what's the big deal? Here's some credit that you don't always want. Now, the way that Henry Ford in the 30s was going to Yale, and he got kicked out of Yale for plagiarism and what happened was the master crime, he sent in, whoever sent the paper, probably it's double plagiarism, sent the receipt and the bill for the work done, and it was submitted in his name along with the work order and the billing for paying for the paper. So this is how they figured out, how this master criminal did that with this difficult detective work. When you are the main guy also, and they'll hold you up because it reflects credit on you, if you're slaving and you're a minion in this guy's laboratory or this guy's academic practice, then that reflects credit on you. And there is an old newsreel of Joseph Stalin giving a talk at one of the Soviet congresses, and there is a thing of him they cut the 45-minute ovation. And what had happened, basically, in this 45-minute ovation, that people don't know, is for the first time they're filming it, and they're filming this ovation from behind him, and nobody wants to be the first one to stop clapping. And so this ovation goes on for 45 minutes, presuming sheer exhaustion took over. And so, here's my chief, and isn't he a hell of a guy? Well, that's to close the talk. What did we learn today? I like that slide. That's the way to look at some things, particularly negative ones. And thank you very much. Please subscribe, and pleasure to give bond reports. Thank you.